I'm proud and excited to announce that the new book, Transform Your Body, Transform Your Life, is now available. I've put the links to grab your copy from Amazon worldwide in the show notes, and I can't wait to see what you think. As a thank you for listening to the podcast, email podcast@rntfitness.com with your receipt, and we'll send you the free ebook version to start reading immediately. If you like a sneak peek of what's inside, you can download the first chapter at rntfitness.com/book. Also, you've heard me talking about the power of journaling for a long time, so I'm happy to announce we've now got customized RNT journals in store. There's a mix of prompts and freestyle writing, which you can take a glimpse of on rntfitness.com/journal. Just a quick one before we get into this episode. If you're in the UK and you use supplements, I'd highly recommend checking out Reflex Nutrition, where they're giving up to 40% on all their range if you use the code PTRNT at checkout. I've been using Reflex for nearly a decade, with their microwave being one of my favorite whey proteins. It's grass-fed, hormone-free, and digests so well compared to most on the market. Check out their full supplement range, including all your transformation basics and plant-based alternatives on reflexnutrition.com, and use the code PTRNT at checkout for up to 40% off. There's a big difference between having a hobby and a passion and being a professional. On this episode of RNT Fitness Radio, I'm joined by fellow teammates Nathan, Shaneeta and Ed Pilko to discuss what it takes to be a professional coach and how to master its art form. We dive into what it takes to get a result with anyone, what separates the wheat from the chaff, and some of the details behind our unique 7 Faces methodology. If you're a coach in any field or someone with ambitions to be a coach, this is one you won't want to miss. So welcome to today's Facebook Live and podcast combined into one. So we're hitting two birds with one stone here. And we've got an interesting topic today because obviously we've been on a big recruitment drive at the moment. We're doing a lot of interviews, seeing a lot of CVs, a lot of applications. And we thought we'd do a podcast about coaching and the topic of, well, we're going to title this, How to Be a Killer. And it's something we say tongue-in-cheek at RNT, especially when people come on board, and we give them the How to Be a Killer chat, because it's all about how to get a result with anyone. So we're going to call it How to Be a Killer. But there's a number of topics that Nathan and I want to discuss pertaining to coaching. And the first one I think we want to kick off is about hobbies, being a hobbyist of this, having it as your passion. Or I don't even know if that's a word.
No, it's not.
Or being a professional, and the difference between the two. So, do you want to just kick off what this is all about, and then we can kind of bounce back and forth on it?
Yeah, for sure. So, when let's say the fitness industry is one of those industries that are driven by the wanting normally to help people or to do something to do with like a hobby or a passion. And some other jobs are driven by being in a professional environment because you have to be, whether it's in a business or it's like, white collar or suit and tie, have to act certain ways, etc., etc. When you come into the fitness industry or you come into that type of industry where it's quite hobbyist, we'll use that word now, is that it sometimes doesn't get treated like it's a profession. And you almost have to, to succeed in that industry, you have to make it a profession. You have to turn up every day like it's, we spoke about it before, not going to talk about sports, but like it is, you have to treat it like a performance. And it has to be something that you take due care of. And when you come in this industry, if you come in it for a hobby, you can get by. But really, if you want to progress and make super, super impact, you have to treat it like a profession.
Yeah, and being a professional, when we talk about being a professional, it's about turning up when you don't feel like it. And it's being able to deliver day in, day out with all the dips and ups and downs that come with it. I think when it's a passion and it's a hobby, it's very exciting. It's very much that shiny object. It's something you do in your spare time. It's exciting, but it's different to when it's your profession because you treat it differently. You approach it in a different way, and you don't get it's not the whole, once I finish work, I'm going to read about this. It's what you do all the time. And I think that's what we're finding is separating some people from the others, in that it's easy to think you might have a passion for something, and that by therefore it should become your profession. And I'm all for following your passion. I've spoken at schools and I've spoken at events about following your passion. I think it's hugely important. But I think there's also something about, are you willing to do this for 10 years? Are you willing to, one thing we hear a lot is, I like helping people. I've helped some of my friends and that's great. But are you willing to help people for 10 years? That's a massive differentiator, because it becomes a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
And one thing we're finding quite interesting is seeing that difference between the two. And sometimes it's hard to tell because you don't know. You can't. You've got to make a judgment call. But it's an interesting discussion, because I think in the 10 years we've both been doing this, we've seen so many of these hobbyists. We've seen a lot of people who've said that they've got a passion for something, but they, 2 years later down the line, they're nowhere to be found. So there's so many people we've seen come and go that it's not just something we've picked up on recently.
Yeah, and from a hobbyist, that's including the people that get into bodybuilding first and then move into coaching. Like, it's not just like people that are white collar, or they get themselves in shape and then now they want to move into coaching. I think coming out from another industry and coming into this one is probably one of the far best ways to do it, outside of just being like pure straight from like 18 or 17, like really raw. I think it's a fantastic opportunity for most to do what they love, and like you said, like follow your passion and follow your dreams and break the mold per se. I think that's absolutely amazing, all for that. But you do get those people that are fall into it from the hobby side of things, from a bodybuilding standpoint or from a different standpoint, and then they're doing it from the shiny object syndrome. And it's great until you get to the point of where you get challenged or the dip comes, and then what happens then?
It's great until it's not great,
Yeah.
And in the bodybuilding world, it's actually interesting because when we were in those circles, you see a lot of people competing on stage, whether it's bodybuilding, figure, bikini, physique. They do one show and all of a sudden they're coaches now, and they do it for a couple of months, do it for maybe a year or so, and then they realize that it's not the glamour that they thought it was going to be, and it's a lot harder than they thought it was going to be as well. I think one of our most important jobs for you and I and for the rest of the team is to really show just how professional you need to be in this game, and how much professionalism is required to coach at this level and to coach over a consistent long period of time. Because, like you said, it's way beyond just helping people lose a couple of pounds. It's all encompassing, and yes, you need to have the passion for it, but you also need to have a certain level of work ethic and drive in order to deliver and create that impact that we're all doing it for.
Yeah, and this industry is probably one of the least governed industries.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you're working with another human and changing things that could change their physiology, psychology, behaviors. Restricting food is probably one of the most, like, if you do it wrongly, can lead to a lot of bad things. And you're obviously playing with that. So, when people come into this, they think, I'm going to help people, and through their best intentions, that's great. But actually, sometimes because of your willingness to just want to help, you actually put people in a worse situation. And, the old stories when you were talking with Dinnell on the podcast about all the stuff that you did to him, that they're all really, really funny stories, but they're your stories that weren't drastic, or they weren't bad. He had unflavored BCAAs or whatever, which is not a bad story to tell. It's a funny story, but other people's stories are that they gained a binge eating disorder from it, or that they now can't look at certain foods, or are scared of the scale weight, or and they're the things that when you're looking at hobbies versus professional, you really have to consider what you're playing with.
I mean, we've heard some horror stories with that exact thing. I've heard of people prescribing steroids, people prescribing supplements, and it going badly, and people's health and long-term health being seriously impacted, just because there's, like you said, there's no governing body in this industry. There's no regulations. There's no accountability. It's very much anyone can do this. Like I said, you can help your mate with it, but you don't help your mate with law, do you? You don't help your mate with prescription medicine or anything like that. So, I do find when I see people helping their mate for something as important as their food, their nutrition, and their training, it does worry me sometimes. And I think that the fact that there's no accountability or governing body for what we do, means anyone can get a bit of information and start. So it's a good and a bad thing, right? There's good points to that, but there's also, I think, a lot of bad things that probably goes unnoticed and kind of slides underneath the rug for the most part. But I've always been the belief that those people get weeded out and they won't last.
100%. Like you get found wanting either in your client's results or in your client's interactions. They're the two places that you find people. Either people are, they get great results with people over the short term, or they have high client turnover, or they can't keep anyone or build a relationship from anything, or they don't get results with their people because they're not a killer, or they're not what we call a killer, or don't have the expertise to do that.
Well, that segues quite nicely into the next part, in that we want to discuss what it takes to be a killer. And what I mean by that is, what does it take to get a result with anyone? You see, it's very easy to fall into that bracket of, that person is too difficult to change, or they can't change, or they're too stuck in their ways, or you got my drift here. But we've seen too many people from too many different backgrounds, struggles, issues, limiting beliefs, and they've all overcome, and they've transformed not only their body but their lives. And it's maybe the frequency we've seen it at has made me realize that anyone can transform, so long as they've got the right tools to do so. And it's our job as a coach to believe in themselves, believe in the coach to believe in the client more than they believe in themselves. And I think being a killer as a coach is firstly having that belief in the client. It's believing you can achieve a result in anyone, but it's also knowing when to wear which face, and especially when to drop the hammer on someone and push them past their expectations.
And also coach them through the dip as well.
Yeah. I mean, one thing we were talking about the other day, I can't remember if it was on a podcast or just in our chat, we were talking about how introspection without action equals nothing.
Yeah, it's rubbish.
But introspection with action equals transformation. At the same time, empathy with no execution is good, but it won't equal a drastic or a need to make a change.
Yeah.
You need, as a coach, I think one of the best ways to approach a situation is to, let's say the trickier ones where you think you might not be sure if you can get a result with them, is to approach the situation with empathy and then back it up with execution. Yeah. That takes a certain level of confidence to do that, because you got to back yourself that you're doing the right thing. But I think that's what really differentiates the wheat from the chaff, and like what a good coach is and what a great coach is.
For sure, because in order to have the first part of that equation, the empathy, you have to have either been there, done that, got the t-shirt, or have true understanding of people's feelings, what they're going through. Like, you don't have to go through every situation. Like, I don't have to get pregnant to train pregnant women, but I also have to understand those various variations of what's going on, and I've dealt with enough people to do that. On the opposite side of that, you've got the executioner side of things. You have to have the strategy and the accountability and control of yourself and belief in the others to be able to put that plan forwards and say, like, this is right for you at this moment in time, and the standards as well. Because a lot of people, when they hear the empathy from a client, may drop their standards because they either feel sorry for them, or they have deep understanding of maybe their own past in there, and then they drop the standards. And that means that client doesn't actually get what they deserve or get to action the plan that's right for them. They get the, sorry that's happening to you right now. Well, we'll look at it next week when everything blows over, which sometimes is more of a case of, you need to say, I'm sorry this is happening right now, but we need to make sure that this is done this week so that you're feeling better by next week.
One of the things one of the things I always say is you can't take someone to the extreme if you haven't been to the extreme yourself. And I keep coming back to it because it's so true in every situation. If you haven't gone to, if you're a coach and you haven't gone to the absolute extreme, you can't take anyone there, and you have to. Not that many clients or people you coach will want to go there, because most people don't want to go to that absolute extreme. But if you've been to the extreme, you can empathize along the whole way. When someone's saying they're hungry and tired, but they've really got to keep pushing, you won't say, "I'll take it easy, let's have a deload, let's have a break," or just take the foot off the gas. No, it's like, "Oh, actually, let's go harder." And I think that's that only comes from being able to go to the extreme yourself. The other example people you always hear: you won't go to a dentist with black teeth, or you can't go to a piano teacher who can't play the piano. It's the same thing in our industry, in that you have to have gone to the extreme yourself in order to push people along any point of that spectrum.
Yeah, 100%. And then being able to go along that spectrum, your clients will fall upon there, and then you'll be able to help them along their way from your own past experience as well. Not only they'll be able to latch onto you because you've done far greater than what they've done before. There's always, like you've always said, you and other RNT coaches have always had a coach that they either admire or respect. I think that's a huge aspect, that they have to respect them, they have to admire what they're currently doing or what they've done previously, and that's what kind of gets them to buy into them as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I think as a coach, being able to practice what you preach multiple times is super critical, because you might not be able to relate to someone's background per se or specific struggle, but at the same time, you're trying to align to a similar sort of goal, and you can still apply empathy even if it's in a different situation. So being able to apply empathy and then strategize, execute, liberate accordingly is something that only comes from going to the extreme.
Yeah, 100%.
One of the things you mentioned earlier was about riding through the dip and being able to coach your clients through the dip. Talk through us about what that means and how you take someone through the dip.
Yeah, so I think there's two parts to the gun dip. As a coach, you'll have a dip when you're in the industry, and then you'll have a dip as you coach your clients. There's the inevitable dips that we speak about in that process phase, and the motivation dip, the precision dip, and being able to see that coming from their moods, their behaviors, their check-ins, their emotions, their actions, and be able to put some level of strategy in there is going to be super critical. It happens to everybody. It's not just 50% of people get a motivation dip. Everyone gets one. It's the relative amount of time that is spent in there dictates strategy and how much you can implement afterwards. For a coach to be able to help someone through that, it actually comes through challenge. It doesn't actually come through being nice or being in a situation where you're like, okay, yeah, well, we're in the motivation dip now, let's do something about it. It's actually through the challenge of saying no. Most people will say, no, this is not for me, or they'll move back a bit and they'll say, I'm doing 80% of what I was doing before, or I've took my foot off the pedal, is what we normally commonly hear. And as a coach, you will need to challenge them so that they can come through that on the other end. Challenge is the way. Everything along that journey, challenge breeds adaptation. Adaptation allows you to then grow. And without that coach being there, that's why people program hop. That's why people read books and then go and do the program from the book, and then read a new book and then do a program from there, or that they go and try a new fad diet, or they do everything other than consistency and going through a dip. And going through those dips are super difficult. It requires a lot of mental resilience as well.
You talk about two different dips in the transformation journey. We've got the motivation dip that you mentioned, which is the one that everyone gets after the honeymoon period, which is the interesting one when it comes to coaches, because during the honeymoon period is when it's all new, it's exciting, it's you're finally following your passion and all these sorts of things, and then the motivation dip always inevitably happens, and it's suddenly like, okay, right, now I've got to make that transition to being a professional. Because it's not going to be sexy every day. It's not going to be exciting every day, but it is worth persisting through the dip in order to be able to deliver impact on the long term. So that's the first one. And then the second one is that precision dip. And that's so common in the journey as well, both client and coach. And as a client, it's where the shiny objects become suddenly much shinier than normal. And I would also say the same is for coaches as well. And that, coaches, when you get the precision dip, it's usually when you need to have that CTP reset. And we've talked about that before. You've talked about conscious competence, which I'll let you explain a bit more about. But it's being able to realign to the right systems that support good quality coaching. So what is the thing about conscious competence that you mentioned? I can't remember if we talked about it on a podcast or if it was in a team meeting.
I'm not sure either. I think it was.
It's definitely a team meeting, but I don't know if we did
said it on a podcast at some point, or in front of the Friday lives. But I just wanted, before we go on to that, is that those dips that you spoke about, I had one of mine back in the day, about, I don't know, when I was PTing on the gym floor, and I got it when I wasn't training anybody that I particularly connected with, or weren't the people that I related to. Like, you know me, I love training like females between the age of 30 and 40. That's like kind of my niche, or 30 and 50 is my kind of niche. I really enjoy it for some reason, don't know why. But I had just a bunch of guys, 25 to 35, ready to go, and I wasn't at that point able to spread the faces. I wasn't able to change myself. I was just this guy who was just straight up empathizer, and I wasn't that guy who could give the strategy in the long-term plan. Like, I wasn't that guy, but that's what all they wanted, these dudes, and I just couldn't give it to them. And every day I dreaded coming in, because I'm just like, they've got to train this guy. Nothing wrong with him. Like, he's a nice dude, but I just don't connect with him. And I was like, well, is this for me? Like, do I want to be training these people at 6 a.m. in the morning? Do I want to be getting up at 7 a.m. or like on weekends to come into the gym? Do I want to be, dealing with this on a day-to-day basis? Like, this doesn't fill me.
Yeah.
But, that's part and parcel of that is the dip of a coach, is that you get a bunch of people that you didn't intend on helping in the first place, but then they weren't my people, my why behind my why, and then you have to go through that and realize that by helping those people, you're actually helping everybody. So
why is your why behind your why linked to that age, the women 30? It
wasn't, but at that time I just thought I wanted to help, and I got most fulfillment out of like getting that deep connection with your client.
It's funny, I actually had, mine was the opposite at the beginning. Like for years I didn't coach many women at all. I think until I think a lot of the time I think there was one point where 95% of my client base was men. And it was very similar in that I didn't enjoy training women. And when I did, I used to go through those dips. And then what I realized was the difference between the amateur and the professional is being able to coach, not coach anyone along that spectrum, but also being able to coach. It wasn't gender specific per se, was it? It's a type of person that's existed in all backgrounds. And now I love it. I don't really mind. Like I don't mind anyone who has for me, like, maybe the ideal person is someone who has a growth mindset, who's willing to learn, who's committed, who's coachable, and is consistent. And those are the 3 transformation keys, we call it. And that's like the ideal person. And that's not gender specific, age specific at all, really. It's just those 3 C's are what sums it up. And now my client base is I would say it's a lot more towards 50-50 with men and female, and I've got no problems with that. I actually really enjoy it. And what I've noticed is it's not the whole thing of like anyone who's a coach or anyone who deals with any sort of work, they see the inbox and they look at which check-in they'll open first. But if you've got a bunch of check-ins that are all committed, they're all consistent, and they're all coachable, you don't mind who you open up. But if you've got someone who isn't any of those 3, then you start thinking, and then you realize that in the reality, it's that type of personality and it's those characteristics that are what you're really after. And that's what allows you to drive and create that impact.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. That's a really interesting change that I found in my career over time. But if you quit in the dip, then you're gone and you won't realize that.
It's the thing, you never quit in that bottom, but you always have to make a decision from the higher place.
Yeah.
Or at least the neutral place anyway. I actually remember that one of your targets for the year, one year when we were working together, was to get more female transformations.
Yeah.
I remember that. That's the year that I beat you on that.
Just to get one female transformation.
Oh yeah, that was it. I remember that lady that you were. Yeah. She come in the door and you were like, "Oh, she's here! Let's go!" Because you were like so excited that you were going to get your first one, and then she did. She looked great actually.
Yeah. It's funny how things go.
Yeah. But those dips are are meant to happen as a coach, and they're needed in order for you to really, really challenge why you do what you do and why it's important to you. We've seen it come and go with many people that go and hit that dip and either go in that shiny object syndrome, or they just realize that wasn't for them.
Yeah, that's a big one. But what you realize when you get through multiple dips, you come out as you're not the hobbyist anymore. You're not the professional, and you're a professional coach with 7 faces. You got 7 different faces, 7 different types of coaching methods you can use to mold and perfect your craft with, and ultimately to guide your clients along a journey to self-mastery and overall transformation, which segues nicely into what the second half of this podcast is going to be, in that we're inviting Ed Pilkington, fellow teammates, Ed Pilkington and Shaneeta Malik onto the podcast. So they'll be here any minute now. But in the meantime, I'll just give you a little brief of why we brought them on, in that we are relaunching the 7 Faces Mastermind in a couple of weeks. And Shaneeta and Ed actually were they were part of the first cohort about 18 months ago. And they graduated and became part of the team at RNT. So it's always special to speak about the mastermind with them because of the impact it's created in their life. And what I thought would be great to discuss with them here is the different faces, the different application, the hardest faces to wear, what are the most common mistakes of wearing faces, and then the real area that I'm interested with the 7 faces, how can it transcend what we do in just the fitness industry? Because, in fact, it might be worth starting off with that, is because I think what we do with the 7 faces of coaching can be cascaded into the corporate world, into relationships, into any sort of coaching position, whether it's leadership, management, because you have to understand when to wear what face in order to get your message across and influence a certain change in another person.
Yeah, it's the delivery before the strategy of any type of coaching. That delivery is everything. Like let's say comedy, the delivery or the ability for that joke to slap is all about the timing of it and the way it's delivered. And that just transcends back to what face you're wearing, how you're delivering the message that you're going to give, whether it's a business meeting, whether it's a one-to-one feedback session, or it's to someone that's trying to change the shape of their life.
So we just got Shaneeta's enter the room.
Hello, everyone.
We're also live on Facebook for today.
I didn't realize that.
So what we're just discussing now is how the 7 faces can transcend across not just coaching. And I think you're always an interesting case study because you were a coach in a different field, completely different field before, but the transferability is very close. So do you want to discuss how it was close and what sort of parallels you found in your coaching there?
Yeah, sure. So as mentioned, I was, I'd say, like an accountancy coach. And when I did want to join RNT, I was very apprehensive about my fitness knowledge and so on. It's a changing career. But actually, as you said, the skills have been completely transferable. And when we did a mastermind with all the different faces, I look back and I think, yeah, I've worn all those faces throughout my previous career, ranging from kind of the strategizer on, just giving them tips on how to answer papers, how to study for them, to problem solving, just helping them from using my own experiences and helping them to get through their days, the night before, the revision period, the studying. And so there's a massive correlation. And having been through the whole chartered accountancy qualification and then teaching it really helps as well, which again links to having been through my own transformation and living through the grind, then that's helped me as well. So all these skills are massively transferable.
What would you say in your previous career were the toughest faces to wear? Are they the same ones you find now, or are they different?
Good question. I I think they're actually pretty much the same. I think one of the hardest ones is the strategizer. Back in the day when I was doing that, it's because you've got to really take into consideration everyone's position, where they're at, their own goals, what restrictions they have. And again, that's similar here with our clients here. Everyone is so varied. Everyone's goals are so different. But yet, at the end, we want to get to the same place, get to the same point. But everyone's got their own route of doing it, and it's using the different strategies. So I'd say, yeah, they were pretty much both the hardest ones, I think.
Another topic we were discussing just before you guys got on air is the concept of going from having a passion and a hobby for a specific subject and becoming a professional in it. How did you make that transition in having a passion for transformation to then being essentially a professional in it and treating it like a profession?
Okay, so I think lots of people have a hobby and a passion for fitness. And we can all say, we all go to the gym 3 times a week. But I think when you feel like it's a necessity in your life, and when you feel that you can actually use this passion and take it to another level and help other people, that's when it becomes more of a profession rather than just a pastime. When you want to use that passion, use your skills, use your knowledge, and use it for other people, is the turning point.
And what about the difference between I'm just helping a couple of mates to, no, I'm going to do this through thick and thin, sort of that transition? Because that's another one we see a lot.
Yeah, you see, I would always kind of like helping friends here and there, but actually joining something like RNT is that you're constantly learning. You're surrounded by people, not only in the team, you learn from your clients as well. Just like I mentioned, like different strategies, they've got things that I haven't thought of. And so it's just, you're constantly in that environment where it's not just you go to work in a bank, come back, do a quick meal plan for someone. I mean, this is something that I'm constantly thinking about. I'm constantly in contact with my clients and learning from them. So that's the big difference from a hobby to making it a profession.
Yeah, completely agree. Ed, what do you think about that? As your transition from like personal trainer on the floor to online coaching, what phases did you have to either mold into, or did you find that were parallel between the two?
I did find quite a big difference, actually, to be honest. I think the empathizer phase is very different. When you're communicating with people via email or WhatsApp, or wherever you are, not face to face, how you convey a message is very different. You can say something in person on the gym floor to someone, give them a pat on the back, smile, have a laugh, chuckle as you're saying it, and it can be interpreted very differently to if someone opens an email the end of a stressful day, kids are crying in the background, and those exact same words can be completely different. And so really kind of leveling up on that phase for me was big. It was actually, I would say, a strength of mine on the gym floor, but as I said, doing it face to face and doing it via email is totally different. I think also, though, in terms of when you're on the gym floor, a lot of it is just the training, the X's and O's. But with check-ins, when you're doing it, not on the gym floor, so the client's actually getting more time to reflect on things. It allows you as a coach to dive way deeper into the other areas. Because as much as you can touch on the other things in rest periods and things, the clients are, when they come to see you on the gym floor, are there to work hard physically. And you need to provide that to them. But getting this weekly check-in where they can sit down, really reflect on the week, go deeper on things, it allows you to then use these other faces a lot more as well, I think.
Do you think a PT and online coach are actually linked? Or do you think that transition is actually a natural, or do you think they're completely two different things?
I think there's definitely a link. But if you think of there's 7 faces, the majority of PTs are that one face, the trainer. And so I think there's undeniably a link, but I think it is a link. It's not the same thing. And I think people who kind of view it as, being able to just transition across seamlessly, it's not the case. There are definitely skills that you need to upskill in when you do then take away that face-to-face contact.
What's the hardest one you struggle with, like in what you do on a day-to-day basis?
I think initially it would have been that empathizer, just because it was an area that I would have said was a strength of mine in person, but it's just the way you deliver that is definitely different when you're doing it not face to face. Other areas, I think, is just having to upskill in the other areas, because although you are putting in strategies for your clients and you were potentially, trying to liberate them and help them with their, limit decision fatigue, etc., outside the gym, you just weren't going in as in depth. Just because you were on the gym floor, you weren't getting the client to reflect in the same way as we do with our check-ins.
Yeah. Nathan, what about you? What do you struggle with most?
I think it would be, we call it the problem solver, but it's effectively the one that you choose when to wear the right face. I think it's always a really hard one, because simply for one person who might need a hard word, the arm around your shoulder it could be a better way to go. And until you make that exchange of words and communication, you'll actually never know whether that was the right thing or not. And unfortunately, there's nothing that says, that was the right answer or the wrong answer in that type of communication. You just have to use your best guess and your best judgment based on how well you know that person. So that's the hardest one, because you have to almost separate your emotions, what's happening in the day, what's happening, what happened in the check-in before, to then come into this new one with this whole new person who you've got a whole new relationship with, to then make the right decision for them at that time. And when you go in, like, let's say if you do an hour and a half block, you just go dum, next and next and next. And then you're 5 people deep. And actually there's 5 different humans in the way that you interact with them, and 5 different personalities, 5 different problems, 10 different problems, and loads of things to think about. So sometimes that separation between the faces and choosing the right one is the one that you can never quantify as right or wrong. So it's always the hardest one for me.
What about you, Shaneeta?
Yeah, as I said, the strategizer. I think for me that one is just drawing the fine line of getting them to where they're at, but yet adhering and making sure they've got their 3 S's in place. So it's just making sure that everyone, because what I've noticed is if they're happy, they'll adhere more. So it's just making sure that you're drawing that line and you're pushing them hard enough, but yet enough, not too much, that they kind of start to fall against what you want to do. So I think the strategize.
And how do you clean the slate between different clients, per se? If you understand what I mean, like what Nathan was saying.
Yeah, no, I see what he means, like with different relationships and different problems. So, the thing is with me, when I respond to clients, I the way my lifestyle is, I kind of take breaks in between each check-in. I can't sit there and do 10 check-ins in one go, 20 check-ins in one go. I do feel like I need to kind of step away and then go back because of exactly what Nathan said.
And what about at the end of the day? Like, does it carry over? How do you manage that and stay fresh? And I mean, a lot of that is part of being a professional, but how do you stay fresh on a week-to-week basis?
I'm not going to lie, and actually I think I spoke about this on the team meeting, that I'd say this week's been pretty tough in terms of emotionally. There's been some clients who have really got to me because I have been worried about them. I have been concerned about them. And then, you do kind of go to bed and, you think, oh, I hope they're okay. Shall I check up on them? And so on. And I don't mean to sound cliche at all, but how do I get over it? I go to the gym, and I know that sounds, oh God, of course you're going to say that. But seriously, like it's like today, I've had a really tough day personally. And yeah, I put my gym gear on again, and now I'm going for a run this evening. That's my only way.
Train like 5 times a day, aren't you?
Yeah, that's what happens when you do homeschooling, right?
Ed, what about yourself? Like, how do you deal with that?
This is something I've actually battled with quite a bit. And when Nathan kind of brought that up about changing between the clients, it's so true, because when you're used to being on the floor as a trainer, you almost get a natural refresh as someone else. That client physically leaves the gym, the new one comes in, you may have a couple of minutes in between, so you get that mental almost refresh. But when you are doing it online, it's possible, if you want, just to click straight onto the next, and it just goes in a straight cycle.
And you don't know what you're going to see, do you?
No, exactly. And it's so easy if you do, have a particularly emotionally charged email or something before, to let that emotional state carry on over to the next person. So it's something I've been trying to do, is just have a little mental refresh, not massive, and it may only be 20 seconds or something, but also just rereading maybe the previous week's comms with the client as well, and it just gives a little bit more of a buffer time between me reading and responding. But I've also found that actually outside of the work blocks, just sticking to some rules we put in place, and I've been working with Nathan on setting up some non-negotiables in terms of lifestyle things. So making sure inbox is on pause outside of work blocks, closing the laptop down by a certain time, just helps me kind of manage my lifestyle a lot better. Because I've definitely had periods where it's spilled over and I haven't been able to switch off. And although then you think, oh, you're working 16 hours a day mentally, sounds great, but the quality just drops. And actually, the tighter I am with these rules, the less I'm maybe actually physically working, but the quality goes through the roof.
What have you noticed is that your symptoms when your rules are slacking?
So I think mood is definitely one. I think it seeps into training performance, because if you're still thinking about the clients you were checking in earlier in the day when you're training, you're not going to be able to train the same way. But a massive one for me is sleep. If I'm lying in bed, especially there was one period when I wasn't managing as well. I'd get up in the night to go to the toilet, and I'd already be thinking about who I was checking in that morning, and another 3 hours I was getting up.
That one.
There was 2 nights in lockdown where I dreamed of check-ins, and then that was like, I really need a sort of this.
You need a break.
Yeah. But to be honest, since I've put the rules in place, I've been consistent with them. It's just been like life-changing, to be honest. It's been really good.
Amazing. Nathan, you said you've helped. Ed said you've helped him a lot with it. Like, what's the importance of rules for coaches to have with themselves and separate personal and professional?
It's just boundaries to not make them overflow. It's super easy to carry it over mentally and physically, and then timely as well. Like, the time is massive for everybody. We want as much in the right areas as possible. But the rules just set your rules of engagement. If you want to work 8 hours a day, you work 8 hours a day. If you want to work in 2 hour blocks, you work 2 hour blocks. If you want to go for a walk after every check-in, cool, go and do that. But like, what rules do? They keep you humming at the performance level that you want to, without it seeping over into that personal time or that other side of your life. Because work is, a big part of it. We work a lot, but equally there should be another side to it that doesn't get hampered by what you do over here. Like, I was guilty of it. Now that I've got a work phone, it's been a blessing in disguise. Like, when I was traveling last year, you'd wake up in the morning and I'll have 50 WhatsApps because I was on a different time zone. I'd be on WhatsApp from 7 till 8 over my breakfast, or 6 till 8 till my breakfast. Then I got onto my emails, and I'd just go straight through all the way through, and then pick up WhatsApp in the afternoon or evenings. And I'd be going to bed at 10 p.m. and I wouldn't have had a break from a screen or at all.
Honestly, I was thinking about it the other day. I was like, I don't know how you did it.
There's a reason why I broke down in Rio, but I would not do what I did last year at all again, just because of how good I'm feeling right now. But I didn't know this place. I didn't know this, like, that this was here. Like, beforehand, I was just running on reactivity and to try and not get, call people assholes or whatever it was.
I remember, because I remember the one time, we went to Sorrento, and I remember on the Monday, because Monday was your big day, because that was always your travel day, and you were just like a nervous wreck, isn't it? Like, ready for what's to come. But like, knowing how you work now, I don't know how you did it any other way.
You wouldn't have been able to do it any other way, because I overloaded myself too much with way too much. Like, I was traveling at least 8 to 9 hours on the flight most weeks.
Blimey.
It's a full-time job.
Yeah, pretty
the
much.
rules, just back to the rules.
Go on.
They just allow you to separate from everything, and when you have them, they allow you to take control in all areas. Like, you set the rules for yourself, and you live by them, and that allows you to define what happens.
What are some of your ones that keep you on your A game?
Mine are phone curfew after 8 p.m. is a no-go. Pain medication for my knee, because that just cascades everything else. bedtime between 9 and 10, training twice a day, one in the morning, one in the mid-afternoon, and WhatsApps only through my work phone, and that's scheduled into the diary. That's it. That'll keep me humming.
What about you, Shaneeta? What kind of rules do you apply?
Yeah, so I'll just do it at the moment. So obviously having the kids and stuff. So my rules are, I have to train twice a day. It's even simple rules that we all have to have time out in our house for like half an hour every day, because otherwise when you're with each other from say 6 a.m. till 8 o'clock at night, it can be quite intense. So even having that 20-30 minutes apart really does help. Simple things like, for me, water. If I don't drink 2 litres of water a day, at least I get a headache. It's literally like I don't eat my first meal until 1:32 in the afternoon, and that's not because of intermittent fasting. It's just personally that just works better for me. There's no kind of medical reason. That's a lifestyle reason for me. So things like that. And I'm a control freak, and I live my life by rules massively. So it works.
What about during the day? So you had you mentioned a few. What about with work? Like, how do you create some separation there?
So I work in the same spot at my job. So everyone knows that in the house. I make sure that I try as much as I can do my check-ins without my kids around me, because I feel that, people here who are parents, you're writing something, they're constantly saying something to you. You need to be in the flow, as mentioned quite a lot, when you're doing a check-in, even if it's kind of 20 minutes, 30 minutes, someone interrupts you, it's very frustrating. So I make sure that people around me know that I'm in the middle of doing something, same spot. And again, mornings, sometimes early morning before the kids wake up, I do try and do as much as I can. Then I'm fresh in the mornings. By night time, I'm done.
Yeah. Pilko, so Shaneeta's given her experience as a mum. What about yourself as a dad of a young one?
So it's definitely been, a difference for sure. I mean, I basically moved on to working from home, and then with a couple of months, wife was, off on maternity leave, so we were both in the house at the same time. And then very soon after that, then my son came as well. So there's 3 of us in the house, and we're in a relatively small kind of terrace house. So it's one of those, if he cries in any room, you can hear it. I'm pretty sure, neighbours 2 doors down can probably hear it as well. So I'd say it's not, on paper, it's not the optimal work environment, but we've just had to try and figure out, and then obviously lockdown coming into place as well, what worked best for us. So we had a bit of a routine in place, and then when lockdown came into place, we changed it around a little bit. But something that's really helped us is just sitting down, and we just talked, me and my wife anyway, about how we wanted to implement it, and then expectations around that, just to make sure that we were both on the same page. So although there is some variation depending on, kind of how Ollie is and things, we basically know where we need to be at each time, and then that will kind of fit through in each day. So I'm at least in a different room from them during work blocks. Wife's great actually in terms of taking them out for walks. Her steps have gone through the roof, but that just gives me a bit more peace and quiet during the work blocks as well. So yeah, just communicating and just setting expectations has been massive for ensuring that we have a good work environment with everyone being at home as well.
Awesome. Anything you want to add to that from your experience? Not as a parent, but working with parents.
No, I know.
A lot of you said a lot of your clients are parents. What is your experience from the other side? You've noticed across the board in terms of rules? And
I think the ones who have the rules and normally are in way more control of the small things like diet and ability to stabilize their body weight and mood and all of those factors. I feel like after that fat loss consolidation phase, the rules almost dictate how your clients or the clients feel and respond on a day-to-day basis. It's almost like if you can get someone hitting their rules every single day, they automatically feel good. And it's just that daily battle or the weekly battle just for them to see as their automatic reset. Like we know now with Ed's rules that when he hits those, he feels a certain way, and that's great for him. And that's working very, very well. And until that's broke, we're not going to fix it. And it's the same with clients, is that if they hit 80% of their rules, they feel like this, or their afternoon energy goes great, or their sleep score goes great, or, you know, they're building muscle great, or their training logs are going great. And it's all about that. Every rule is differently. People can have them on like a really nice small tightrope. So I must do like these 11 rules 7 times a day, or you can have just 4 rules that govern the rest of your week. You can run on any type of format, but providing that you've got them, and you know, like, when you hit them more often than not, you're going to get this great or automatic feeling. Like, I know if I hit all mine, sleep's going to be really good, performance in the work is going to be great, and you know the same as well. When those start slipping, something else goes, or something else is going.
You don't realize that until it's too late.
Yeah, but then when you hit that 3 out of 7, and the little red comes on your check-in, or the 4 out of 7, you're like, it's going a bit here. Then that's when you can start like reining it in, or having that CTP reset like we've been doing with each other.
I tell you what, sleep is the biggest one, isn't it? When you wake up feeling like you're ready to go, you know you're on it. I don't know about you, but
yeah.
But I think also, just coming off that with the parent side of things, so many of the clients we have who are parents have their kids as their why, or, you know, part of the driver behind what they're doing. But these rules translate to how well you parent. I've definitely found this. You know, like if I don't stick to closing the laptop at the time I want to, that's physically just cutting into time that I'm going to spend with my son that evening. You know, if I go on and work another 2 hours, that's me just not seeing him for that evening, or, you know, not taking him out or playing with him. And so even if you can see the rules as precursors for all these other things, but also just directly, if I don't do that, I'm not going to be around as much as a dad for him. So it is just that direct thing. You know, if you stick to the rules, you're going to tick off that why, because you're going to be around for your kids more, or in a better position to help them.
That's huge. Shaneeta, you got anything to add to that?
No, I would just say, personally for me, following on from what Ed said, you want to spend as much time with your children, but it's also not just, for me, it's not the quantity of time, it's a quality of time. And I've been in positions where I'll be playing Monopoly or something, but then I'll be thinking, oh my gosh, I haven't done this, I haven't done that, I haven't done that. And I know I'm not fully engaging with my child, even though I am physically sitting there. So again, that's one thing that drives me as well, to maybe just get up that 1 hour early in the morning. It's my non-negotiable. And I've said this as well. It's not just about drinking water and exercising. I talk about this to my clients a lot. My non-negotiable will be my family. And I've spoken about this with the team as well. And in order to get that done, it means going to bed an hour earlier, and it means getting up an hour earlier, and maybe doing some client stuff an hour earlier. So that means that my quality of my workout, the quality of my time with my children is that much better.
Absolutely. As a coach, when you're helping clients through these rules and through all these different things, you got to understand when to wear what face and how to apply it. We have this in our 7 Faces Mastermind, and which is coming up soon. And Shaneeta and Ed were actually 2 graduates from our first cohort. For the people who may be starting or thinking about signing up at the moment, what's one reason why people should do the Mastermind?
I tell you what, you see so much on social media, you read so much in magazines, so much in books, but the 7 Faces was absolutely just I think a revelation, to be honest, because a lot of things can be a blur when you read, just a lot of words, and it doesn't. What the thing with the 7 Faces, it breaks it down, and it's so nice to kind of, as a student and now as a coach, to actually be able to separate each one and to study each one and to learn how they all integrate with each other and with different varieties of people. And that's the beauty of it, rather than just, oh, here's a meal plan, or follow this, or do this, or you hear these podcasts that are quite wishy-washy in a way, and it's just a bit of a discussion. This is something to hold on to. It's structured, yet it's flexible enough that you can play around with it. So that's why I think it is absolutely brilliant compared to the other things that I've seen.
Amazing. Ed?
I'd just say the Mastermind and the 7 Faces it covers is just the difference between being a trainer and a results-producing trainer, in my mind. I think the basic information around energy balance, basic, sets and reps and things. It's all out there. You can scroll on Instagram, see the basics, and like enough information to get results. If you ask the average person in Tesco, how do you lose weight? They'll say eat less, move more. Like that the basic information is already out there. Everyone kind of already knows it, but it's applying that and then taking it from, Instagram or wherever you're getting it from, and actually applying it to a client and getting them to put that into their real life, which is what differentiates a trainer and a results producing trainer. And that is everything the mastermind is about. And that's why when I saw it, I've been doing different courses, which are great, but they're almost just for my own thirst for knowledge or enjoyment. I was finding I was going to courses, but they weren't being translated to clients because I already had enough knowledge in those areas to help the people I was working with. It was translating it to get them to put it into action. And that's ultimately, without action, the clients, they're not going to get the results, are they?
Amazing. So if you want to go from a Tesco trainer to a results producing coach, the mastermind is what you need.
Exactly.
This one starts on the 21st of July, and you can go to www.rntfitness.com/mastermind to secure your spot. Nathan, you got any final words as the lead coach on it?
Do it because I'm lecturing. I think.
Yeah. I meant to say that Nathan is absolutely amazing as well. He's an amazing. His lectures, shall we say, are absolutely excellent. So yeah. He's not boring at all, like you would think maybe a coach could be. It's online. You might think it's not personal enough. Far from it.
Actually,
Nathan's biggest fan.
Yeah. I'll get you a fan t-shirt. Yeah. The only thing I would say is that having done a lot of courses, and a lot of everything in education and around the training and getting people results world. It's the thing that bridges the gap, like Ed was saying. It's the coding for what you can read about, what you can research, and what you can look at, and how that transpires over into actual physical results with people, short term, long term, and all the way through. In all areas of life, yes, this is the training. Yeah, this is about how it transpires onto online coaching. But if you take out the word online coaching and put in business coaching or how to just develop your team, it's the same thing. All you just got to do is take out the X's and O's of a calorie deficit plus 20,000 steps and put in a SWOT analysis or lean methodology or whatever, And there's only two things I know outside of training and nutrition. I got PTSD from doing a SWOT analysis for 2 hours. But yeah, that's it. It's the bridging of the gap for everything from delivery.
Awesome. So yeah, just head to, if you want more information, go to www.rntfitness.com/mastermind. We'll put the link in the show notes. If you've got any questions, email mastermind@rntfitness.com. But otherwise, that's all from us. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much for being here today on this episode of RNT Fitness Radio. I'd love for you to do a quick little favor for us. Please head over to iTunes and give us a 5-star rating, leave a comment, and share it with your family and friends. If you're interested in learning more about how to transform your body and positively change your life, go to www.rntfitness.com and explore all our free content on offer. Thank you.